I gradually slumped onto the hard wooden floor of my small house as I awakened from an abrupt rest in a horrific nightmare. A small rat dashed over my feet, causing me to panic and jump back into the minute cot I had been sleeping in. In my dreams, I was reminded of the various stories of some civilizations being destroyed throughout the entire world over the past year, due to God's will. I was frightened beyond belief that the sinners of Sicily would at some point offend God so wretchedly that Sicily itself, my homeland, would pay the price. My mother, Giovanetta, heard my scream, so she rushed to the small portion of the plantation house to inquire the cause of the disturbance in the otherwise relatively quiet area. I responded, while jittery, "Where's father?" Giovanetta gave me an awkward glance before gesturing for me to look out a window. There I saw my father, Luigi. I threw on my white undershirt, hose, tied some old cloth around my feet, and proceeded to meet Luigi at the orchard. "Hi, father," I murmured. Luigi responded with a friendly nod and continued plowing the earth. We, the Tabarellis, worked on an olive orchard at the northern coast of Sicily. We were located just a sixth of a mile from a seaborne trading port which allowed us to send all of our products throughout the European lands. My name is Luca, and the year was 1347. I just had my 11th birthday. I took my small water bucket and began watering the trees due to an odd drought that had unfortunately struck our home. I continued to do so until I saw an odd man approaching in the corner of my eye. "Good day, Tabarellis." I slowly rotated myself to see the man's face. "Luca, you're getting taller," he said. I cumbersomely nodded my head and continued working. "Hermano," father shouted, "I am so glad you are here. We've been waiting for our new tools to come in. Do you have them?" "I'm sorry, Luigi, but unfortunately there's been some sort of crisis with the population in Agrigento. The town had the supplies from which the merchants there traded with another location, but the whole town's population is dead. Not by bandits or criminals either. Everybody just died." Father grumpily stared at his old, rusty farming equipment and heavily sighed. He had the gentlest look of terror in the back of his eye. It sent chills down my back. "Interesting. I've been hearing repeated stories of arrows being flung down from the sky at random and killing whole civilizations over the past year," father stated. "Perhaps. The merchants in Agrigento, however, stated that there were a select few individuals that survived the whole tragedy. They managed to recall that the people who died just developed huge red bumps on their skin, mostly in the groin." My father scratched his chin in wonder. "Luca, fetch my cross, the one with the string running through it." I ran back to my parents' cot area and scanned the room for father's necklace. I found it and ran it back to him. "Thanks, Luca." He grasped it in his hand and kneeled down, put his head to the ground, and clasped his hands together. "Oh, Heavenly Father." He said a prayer and returned to his feet. "Perhaps that will prevent this misfortune from spreading. I wonder if it's the actions of Agrigento that led to such a tragedy." All the time the conversation was occurring, I was shaking tremendously. The disease had finally hit Sicily. All it had to do now was travel north. Hermano grasped father's hand for a while as he finished his story. "And that's when I came here. Hermano tended to be a gossiper throughout Sicily, telling stories about his travels, and the latest news on the relationship between Vendetta and Amadio, talking about how Attilio's mother had just passed and so on. He was the owner of the small shipping dock that was just a few minutes away from our house. "Goodbye, Luigi. I'll try my best to get you your tools before harvest." Father's face soon turned sour again by the news. "We'll see," he sarcastically responded. My father and I continued to water the field and apply new saplings to the ground until evening struck. We worked until dinner, where Mother made semolina from scratch, with a smashed tomato topping. "Wow, with soup too!" I exclaimed. My mind was completely off of God's punishment. "Well, your father was able to make quite a lot of money from the recent harvest," Mother responded. "Although he is usually pretty tight-fisted with our spending, I was able to find the marjoram and thyme relatively inexpensively. Quite a rare feat, if you ask me." We dug into our meal until all of us were stuffed, something in common for the family generally. I climbed into my small cot and, satisfied with my meal, had dreams as sweet as the marjoram. I almost hadn't noticed the sudden shriek from father in the middle of the night. "It can't be," Mother exclaimed. She looked down and saw a red, plump bump located on her arm. She threw her head onto Father's chest and began sobbing. "I've been struck by the arrow. It's the same illness that Romano was discussing." "It's on you too," I sobbed. I had traversed into my parents' room and saw the bump on my mother. She casually looked at her mom and continued sobbing. Mother, what did you do to be punished like this by him? I'm not sure. The words barely escaped her mouth. Tears were pouring out of her eyes. Giovanetta, Father began speaking. We probably won't live to see the end of 5 sunsets from now, at least according to the stories from Ermanno. We must protect Luca. We will send him off to a place that is relatively safe. From what I've heard, Poland has not been affected. They must be good Christians there. There's no way we can get him there, Luigi, Mother replied. If they know somebody from Harrison, they won't take him. We've been infected by God's will. He will spread it to others. Leave that to me. Luca's been a good Christian. My parents sent me back to bed, although I didn't sleep. The next day, after Father ate his morning meal, he took an old barrel we had once received in a trade. After talking me into leaving the orchard for my own safety, he took some olives from the recent harvest and dumped them in, filling the barrel to the brim. He then took me and placed me into the barrel, gave me a loaf of bread for food, kissed me on my forehead, he gave me a long, awkward hug, as I was already in the barrel, and closed it with a lid. Father went to Ermanno's trading port and began chatting with the shipmates who were about to take off on their journey. I'm sorry, but we can't take you with us. We will not transport anyone who have sinned so horribly that he's been struck by God. Apparently they already knew about the crisis in Sicily. I don't want to be taken with you. Just take some olives with you. If we're dying, I might as well do some goodwill. Father rolled the barrel into the man's now open arms, and the ship took off. I poked a hole out of the flimsy barrel and saw a beautiful ocean, filled with glistening water. I was amazed. The ocean was a deep, rich blue, and the sky was filled with beautiful clouds. I saw some shipmates astounded by the scene as well. After getting my fill of the scenery, I fell asleep for a while, thinking about my parents I will never see again. I began coming to the conclusion that I made the correct decision, leaving my family as they were most likely horrible people. Why else would they be harmed by such a terrible fate? When the ship docked, I awoke and scanned the area for any shipmates with the small hole I poked out in the barrel. Not seeing any, I jumped out of the cramped thing and sprinted. Father's parting instructions were to find a family to take me in. I was not to repeat any events of what happened, so as to protect myself. I immediately set out for Karlika, a nice countryside area I had overheard the shipmates conversing about. After receiving instructions on where to go from a nice old man on the ship dock, I had a third of my bread and sat by a tree to get some sleep. My eyes barely caught a glimpse of a small, round, red bump on my arm as I fell into a deep sleep.